All right, folks, we're back into it. Game number 4 currently underway, and we are actually getting close to the end of the series. Again, I don't know. This could go either way, but right now he is leading 2-1. Slaps down that pool pretty darn quick. In the top right, it's SortOf.
In the bottom left, as the blue Protoss, Millennium's Lilbow.
Now, Lilbow actually does something a lot of Protoss players do, and you won't oftentimes hear me herald a North American player, am I right? But Huck, I really love the way Huck opens his games, because he always puts this first pylon tucked away safe and sound in his mineral line. And early pools like this, without speed, are meant to get across the map, and they have one job, and that's kill that pylon. And if this pylon goes down, that's usually game. So that's why we started seeing players like Huck, I always do that, and a couple others who have put them in the minerals. It's easier to defend, it's safer, and it guarantees you don't die to silly pools like this. Now, unfortunately, yeah, it does leave your ramp a little bit less defended, and in some situations you can fully wall this off and not worry about those early lings.
Right.
But I don't know that Lilbow is going to have any idea this is coming. There's been no precedent set, especially on a map like Orbital Shipyard, to do this.
Well, this is going to be a tough hold. Lilbow not making his zealots, because of course he didn't scout at all. Like, why would he think he needs to make his zealots? And he's going to let those lings right in. They're going to kill the pylon. He's probably going to desperately try and pull the probes into it, but it'll be too late for that. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Probe hype! Just kidding.
Well, almost. He does have to pull probes in general, but even in doing just this, this is doing damage. The probe's not mining. It's hurting Lilbow pretty significantly, but keep in mind, if the pylon dies, that's pretty much game. So it's better to take damage and not lose than to lose straight up. And that's all so close out, but I think it's going to get denied. And that's why this becomes so problematic. Now, he's still got supply, sure, but it's only probes and a mothership core spawning. Has no pylon to overcharge in the back of the base, so she will eventually clean up these lings, but once again, not before he denies money. Keep in mind, for every 1 minute that Lilbow's not mining, that's essentially 500 minerals SortOf gets above his opponent. That's an extra base. That's a lot of extra lings. That's several queens. That's just how this game snowballs. And the mothership core is far away from this pylon, so they're going to focus it down. Now, they can't kill it, unfortunately, but it does bait out the second overcharge.
Well, there's the zealots, and there are few enough lings the zealot can take care of things now, and that did not end the game.
It did a lot of damage, though. It really did.
SortOf is looking good in this game. He certainly made up for the earlier loss for doing that pool in general. And now the game will continue. There's a lot of time left before SortOf has to worry about a counterattack because, of course, Lilbow, so focused on getting that zealot out, doesn't have Warp Gate on the way.
Yeah, gas goes directly into the Twilight Council. Now, I'm actually wondering if that link saw that on death. Let me check. No, it didn't. But, yeah, so, yeah, just going back to this for a moment, like, the resources lost is dead even. Okay, except for it's not really the case. You've got to tack on like I'd say another 400 easily from the probes not mining, if not a little bit more than that even. Again, this is where our income graphs would be awesome, but we don't have them. So, yeah, a bad situation for Lilbow, but not out of the game by any means. With an even worker count and his natural base having put down, like, okay, great. He's got Chrono Boost. He's going to get those workers back out, and he'll get back to mining here in full saturation ASAP.
Well, SortOf's going to a third base. No Roachworn quite yet, but I imagine that's going to be the safer bets. There's no reason to really risk trying to go up to like a fast Mutalisk build, for instance. It's just, you know, why do that? So there's the Roachworn. Like I said, he doesn't have to worry about an attack for quite some time, even though Warp Gate is trying to be pushed out here, lickety split. And well, I still gotta wait for Resident Glaives. Lilbow still has to wait for the actual warp ins, of course. Just the gateways are on the way. He's gonna try and make up that probe damage with some drone damage, probably with the Adepts, if they see an opportunity to shade in. If there's not enough roaches, for instance, the SortOf just playing a little too greedy. The Lilbow is also going to go for a third base.
It was actually kind of awesome here for SortOf, as we now realize, because there's no stalkers typically made early game PvZ anymore, and there's definitely not with everything being delayed and gas needing to go every which way. SortOf actually has 2 overlords that got to free scout the base and just dip all the way in and all the way out. Yeah,
that's really nice. There's some roaches, just defensive roaches. An evolution chamber on the way. Lilbow will have the Resonating Glaives, but he did spend most of his money on that Nexus, so doesn't actually have anything to use the Resonating Glaives with. Finally gonna warp in 4 Adepts.
Now, I'm wondering about this too, because there's not a robo. There's not going to be a lot of shuffling around of units. There's not going to be a warp prism on the other side of the map. It is just gateways and adepts. And if you've got enough, I mean, you look at maps like Prion Terraces where we actually see Protoss players just all inning with straight up adepts and nothing else, and that works, and it beats Zerg a lot of the time. But in a situation like this, Lilbow doesn't have the money to get that count that high.
Mm-hmm. Blink Stalkers, they're not, like, every single time Lilbow was pushed out, he's never had an upgrade with him. As a +1 or, you know, +2. And we used to always have to just immediately attack on +2 Blink Stalkers in Heart of the Swarm. It became habit, really. To see him without Blinks, without that +2 looked fine for Naniwa, but it's actually, like, feel like it's really hindering Lilbow's push. Once ago, the Evolution Chamber wall off, quite clever from SortOf.
I like this move. I really do. Like, this is something cool because A, we're seeing no other Zerg players do this, but B, it's effective because it'll stop the adepts from going to the main. And the biggest problem with trying to deal with a good player who knows how to use adepts is them shuffling from one base to another. So if you cut that out right at the source, that stops the attack.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting question coming from Robbie Blitz in chat. Says, is there a way to download your replay viewer mod with the income graph? So it's something where the game has to be hosted with it. You can't apply it retroactively. So, for example, when we send replays and you guys see that it's on the BTTV Graphs mod, you can activate the graphs in-game. But if you take a normal game, there's no way to possibly apply the graphs afterwards because it has to do with interacting with the game data very differently.
Yeah.
But we are actually, we've got a version we got to test out. Luckily, I think we finally fixed our problem with the graph mod. There's a couple of small tweaks and bugs to it, but one of the biggest ones was if we checked vision, it would ruin the ability to look at graphs. And if that's fixed, that's like the ultimate, like, perfect mod. Be great.
Yeah. I've gotten to that point where I'm just constantly, like, you know, being like, okay, I'm not going to check this, even though I probably should.
I know, right? I've done that in a couple of casts for sure. I'm like, well, we'll just assume he didn't see it. It's like, no way to know. But okay, as we come across the map, we got a resub, actually. Magic Monkey resubs for 15 months. Thank you very much. Big attack a little bit, but his supply is down coming into this, so I actually don't know how well this will go. Blink can certainly take you a distance, but if he's fighting at the front, baits to the back, adepts don't really know where they want to go. They're good against Hydras, but not if they're alone, so cancels the transfer. Coming on back to a big warp and a reinforcement, so that's a lot of Stalkers joining that front line. The adepts drew through the Zerglings as quick as possible, but now there's Corrosive Biles. There's some Hydras behind this. Lilbow still hasn't caught up in supply yet, but he is bridging that gap quickly.
Oh, this is very dangerous. Yet again, I gotta talk about those upgrades. Sort of with +1 Carapace, Lilbow with absolutely nothing.
Drone's pulled into
top of
this.
that Warp Prism, that'd really take this attack down.
He's not using the Warp Prism to help with the Blinks, though, so he's losing Stalkers that, again, if he was using the Warp Prism to help micro this, would look a lot better. That supply count is starting to fall, and this is everything for Lilbow, guys. Make no mistake, 3 bases or not, this is a pretty dedicated attack that had to do damage. Walks away with a third, well, not a third, more like a half of the supply of his opponent.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Lurkers are on the way, and Lilbow does not have a real response to them. 4th base did finish up during that, so sort of can transfer over. And that isn't a very high drone count, but he still has the option there. Lilbow could try and go for another all-in, or he could just try and start harassing while going up for tech, but I don't see any tech on his production tab, so I guess it's just follow up with more Stalkers.
I don't think so. I want to point this out because there's, in a less elegant way, been brought up like, why does he keep trying this build? Blink Stalkers clearly aren't working.
Yeah.
Blink Stalkers actually do work in a lot of situations, and unfortunately, the way Lilbow's handling it, they're not, because it is this big brute force attack where you're attacking the front lines head on, hoping that you've just got more supply. Something more like if you had used the Warp Prism to get a sentry, right? Blink up here. Force field the ramp. Like moves like that are what we're seeing make Blink Stalkers look so damn good. But holy schmoly, that's a lot of adepts coming in. He spreads them so they're not going to take the splash. Oh my god, like half the Hydras die immediately. Now he's going to start pushing in. He takes a supply lead immediately off the back end of this. But the problem is I don't think he's got detection. No, I take that back. He does have 2 observers, one on the front line already, one advancing forward. But he's bleeding out a lot of units of these lurkers because he's not focusing them down.
GG.
GG though.
Adepts.
And that, well, yeah, it wasn't the Blink Stalkers. It was the adepts. Oh, man. The second he came out of that Sonic transfer, like, all the Hydras died, like, instantly.